Hello, hello. I am Matt Williamson. It is Mailbag Day on a beautiful day here in the Berg. Twitter Tuesday, if you will. I am cool with that. So let's just dig right in. We got 5 or 6 really good questions that I chose. And starting off with Eli Krebs, a constant contributor. Appreciate it. Could you see them installing, he puts in quote, a 5-minute offense package where Fields becomes the quarterback to close out a game? No offense, Eli, but that's usually a 4-minute offense. But hey, maybe it's a typo. Seems like if you are up in the 4th and just need 2 first downs to win the game, this package could be such a weapon. I like it. I like the conversation. Now, my first hesitation to that is when the game's on the line or it's a crucial time, I would prefer the veteran, been there, done it guy. You know, I mean, in terms of all the things you got to deal with and the pressure and putting a team away. But I like where your head's at. I mean, it's kind of like bringing in Jerome Bettis, you know what I mean? The end of the career and pounding teams into submission. And I think that they will do a Fields package no matter what. And we've talked about that a lot. And it sounds as though when it's come up, that Wilson's very open to that idea, etc. I'm sure it's been explored, and maybe we'll see more of that at like the mandatory minicamp stuff when you start to see more schemes, things thrown in the mix. But to close out games, possibly. I mean, if the flow of the game seems to be going, man, we're starting to get the edge here, you know, that we're winning in the trenches. This defense is tired. We don't need a whole lot of mystery here. We could even take an extra offensive lineman out there with Darnell Washington, Freiermuth, Fields, you know, 1 wide receiver on the field, whatever package you like, and have no mystery about it. We're just going to keep running it and could even play action, take a shot to Pickens. And when you start getting clear one-on-ones, and from a passing perspective, it would be good for Fields in terms of very simple reads. You know, there wouldn't be a whole lot of, you know, complex coverages at that point. So I don't dislike it at all. I mean, I think that makes all the sense in the world. And some of this, it's not as applicable here, but like it used to make me crazy when the Saints would pull Drew Brees off the field, who was a top 3 quarterback in the league, for Taysom Hill. However, those Hill packages average like 6 yards a carry or per play. So if you can go out there and get first downs and 2 downs with Taysom Hill for even a splattering of plays, even with Drew Brees on the sidelines, there is some value to that without question. Now, Russell Wilson is not a top 3 quarterback, and Fields is much more of a quarterback than Taysom Hill. But I just want to throw that out there. I do think that's relevant. But as in terms of closing out games, bringing Rob Dibble out of the pen or whatever, you know, and just shutting teams down. Here comes Eckersley. Here comes, you know, Mariano Rivera. I think there's some merit to that, and it's not like Fields has not played a lot of football. You know, like I mentioned, my reservation is you're taking the veteran off the field. Well, Fields has played a lot of quarterback snaps and has seen things and won games before and closed out games. So that might not be as big a deal as I let on, but that was my first negative to this. BetOnline's your #1 source for all your summer sports this year, from baseball, hockey, NBA, golf. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use a mobile device to get in on the action. That's super easy. BetOnline, where the game starts. Andrew asks, good question here. Joey Porter Jr. recently said that no one in the league was traveling with other teams' wide receiver ones like he was. After he got the starting job, is that true? Why didn't he garner more national attention for it? Great question. I think he should have got more national attention had he been the starter since day one. I think that hurt his cause a little bit in the defensive rookie of the year conversation. as well as overall national recognition. And frankly, I thought he had a really strong case for Defensive Rookie of the Year in a very down season for that award, to be honest. And that's not taking anything away from any of those guys that were finalists, including Joey. But yes, not only were his numbers extremely good when targeted, yes, he was being asked to do the hardest thing in football, and that is follow number one receivers around the field a high percentage of the snaps. Not every snap. And it's not like you're 100% on an island. I mean, still a too high shell can help you or whatever. I mean, there's going to be other coverage players that get involved or help over the top or whatever. But I would say, and I've seen these numbers, I don't have them in front of me, he's at the top of the list for shadowing number one receivers. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's not quite Revis Island or Dion when he would follow Jerry Rice around every snap or things like that. And it's becoming less and less common. First off, you don't see as much man as you used to back in those days. And one of the issues whenever you have a shadow corner is it can be difficult on the other 10 to adjust and still disguise coverages and things of that nature. You know, I mean, you're kind of showing your hand a little bit to the quarterback that Porter's going to guard Adams. Okay. Well, if I know that, I can also go to part two of that. Well, that means this is going to happen consequentially, et cetera. But Andrew, I think you're 100% right that what he did as a rookie did not get enough national attention. And I'll even say it didn't get enough local attention when it was happening. You need folks like myself here to bring that up. And I would say he was in the top 2% of all corners in terms of degree of difficulty of assignment. Good stuff. Michael Edward asked, do you believe that the increased NFL game schedule has resulted in less workhorse running backs? I feel like the premier backs are declining because there are just too many games for them to go with one guy, and the injury risk is too much. Could the schedule have killed the elite running back? Okay, I think there's a lot of facets to this. On my Peacock and Williamson mailbag last week, someone asked, can anyone catch Emmitt Smith, who's at like 18,000 all-time yards? And the answer is no. Like, Derrick Henry is the all-time leading rusher, or is the current leading active rusher, and he would have to double his career to get to Emmitt. I mean, think of that. So that has changed, and the nature of it has changed. I was having a conversation with my aunt, uncle, and mom yesterday, and I don't know a whole lot about baseball anymore. But smartly, I mean, the old folks will say no. There's also no Bob Gibsons or Roger Clemens or just guys that go out there and you hand on the ball and they're going to give you 8, if not close the game out. And the reasoning is sports scientists have got involved and said that's not smart, you know, and I think the same thing is true for running backs. I definitely think, though, that the increased schedule when that happened not too long ago also lends itself to team building differently, valuing your number 2 running back more than they did in the past, and even number 3 guys and things of that, you know, along those lines. So I dug up this stat, which I found very interesting, is over the last 3 NFL seasons combined, if you look at the 32 teams and you look at the leading rusher at the end of the year, what average percent of the carries does every team's leading rusher over the last 3 years average? You're probably thinking it's like 75%, 80%. It's 53%. So think about that. You know, like there's a lot more quarterback running. That cuts into the pie heavily. And very few teams have a quarterback that leads the team in rushing. Injuries set in, you know, I mean, that's one of the beauties of a guy like Najee so far, you know, knock on wood, you know, that he has been durable, reliable. But even him, if him and Warren stay healthy the whole year, might only be a little higher than 53%. So the average leading rusher percent of carries over the last 3 years for their team is only 53%. That leads us to a crowd favorite, Joey Bag of Donuts. Should the Steelers have more depth at running back? If Najee or Jalen go down, they're in trouble. I'll fight you on this one. Cordero Patterson's been around the block as a running back. There was a season with Atlanta that he was basically the running back one. He's not just a returner. He did come in the NFL as a wideout, and he's the all-time, he's the best kick returner ever. But his most success on offense has been as a pure running back. And Arthur Smith knows that better than anybody. So I think he is a strong number 3. And I'm also kind of interested, could this undrafted dude from Georgia, rookie, I'm not going to say he's the next Jaylen Warren, but could he make some noise? So I am not at all concerned with running back depth, even with all the stuff Michael Edward asked about and the wear and tear and the long seasons and all that good stuff. Last one, Bobby C. As much as I like Patrick Queen, do you think if you gave Kevin Colbert true serum, he'd say he should have traded for Roquan Smith? And do you think Khan would have made that trade? And not putting words in your mouth, Bobby, but obviously this has nothing to do with Queen. They just happen to both be Ravens, etc. And if you would have traded for Roquan, you would not have signed Queen, of course. And the Ravens probably wouldn't let Queen go if Roquan was a Steeler, etc., etc. And he cost the Ravens a mid-second round pick, which at the time, from what I recall, you probably would have been more attractive to take the Steelers' second round pick than the Ravens that year. But, pretty much apples to apples. Second round pick at the trade deadline was what it was going to cost, and that's what Baltimore paid. Now, would Khan have done it? I don't have any idea. But I do think Omar's more aggressive than Kevin in terms of certainly trades with other teams, whether you're giving the player up or getting the player. But what I know for certain is ownership's the same. Like when they decided to trade their first round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, that was that's ownership putting a stamp on that. You can want to do it all day long, but if your boss and owner of the team said, hey, we have a policy here going back to the 60s that we don't trade first round picks anymore, we're not trading first round picks. That's off the table. So they move like this mid-season. And you got to remember, Roquan was a free agent to be. So he's going to be a sign and trade player at the deadline, trade for and sign player. Do we plan on doing that? Do we want to invest in these linebackers? And he was better since the trade than he was before, but he was still really promising. And trust me, every outlet that I was working for at the time, we discussed it thoroughly. And I very much, I don't say I was in favor, but I would not have dinged them one bit if they gave up a mid-second round pick, what it looked like at the time, for Roquan Smith, who has now developed into one of the second best linebacker on the planet. He is great, and he has the right attitude and head and every down abilities. So Kevin could have been in on it, and the rest of the organization wasn't. Khan, it's hard to put the way you phrased the question is hard. Kevin might have been pushing for it and coach and ownership didn't want to, or vice versa, or he wasn't in on it at all and Omar would be. I do think this GM would probably be more likely than the previous one to trade for an existing player. And maybe we will see that with the wide receiver still. You guys keep giving me wide receiver questions. I just don't have any more answers than I already have. I still think they're going to be kicking those tires like crazy. This Niner stuff doesn't seem to be going away, especially with Justin Jefferson and all these dudes signing. There's the price of Ayuk going up for San Fran. They also re-signed Jawan Jennings. And of course they drafted Pearsall in the first round. But I think the Niners are in it to win it this year. And I think you could get Deebo Samuel off them after the season. I don't know that you can get either one of them off them now. I think the Niners, don't want future picks as much as they want to win now. And if it had been pre-draft, maybe it'd been a different story. They could have drafted a number of people instead. But anyway, I don't think this regime lacks aggression to go out and get players from the other team, or frankly, to move players from your team for picks, more so than when Kevin was here. But I can't answer the question the way you phrased it of, does Kevin regret it? Does would Omar have been different? Again, a move like that has to get the stamp of approval from ownership. So who's to say? Sure worked out for the Ravens, and hopefully it works out for the Steelers, and that the ripple effect is you get Queen without giving up a pick and still massively upgrade the position. So that's what I got for today. Take care. Over and out.